On page 12, we are continuing with when asking a person, how is the person doing? Okay, so when we ask, how are you? We say in Khoekhoegowab, mire, mire. That in fact means exactly the following. It literally means you're saying, say it, say. Re in this regard means a polite request or a polite command. So, mire, mire, mire. That is how you ask someone, how are you? So, a very easy response to that would be, haya, 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 which means I'm good or I'm well. So, if I'm saying I'm well, how about you? I would say, haya, aitsama mire. Again, haya, aitsama mire. Say with me. Haya, aitsama mire. One more time. Haya, aitsama mire. Can you say it on yourself? Another way of saying I am well is Haisa taha, Haisa taha. And if I would say I am well, how about you? I would say Haisa taha, aitsama mire. Haisa taha, aitsama mire. Now, when the first person responds, he would say Titachin Kaisaha. Titachin Kaisaha, meaning I am also well. So this is an exercise, a dialogue exercise, where you're speaking between the first person and the second person. So the first person starts it off by saying mire. The second person answers haya aitsama mire. And the first person would respond again saying Titachin Kaisaha. Or another way of doing it is saying the following. Mire, how are you? Second person would respond by saying Kaisa taha aitsama mire. And the first person would respond by saying Tita chin kaisaha. Tita chin kaisaha. Tita chin kaisaha. Meaning I am also well. Can you please translate the following into Khoekhoegowab? The first person is asking the second person, how are you? What would you say? Again, how would the second person respond if they said, I am well, how about you? Again, give me another way of saying, I am well, how about you? How would the first person respond in Khoekhoegowab when they say, I am also well? I am also well. How would that person say it? One more time. In Khoekhoegowab, there is more than one way to ask how a person is. You can see there is more examples of this on page 13. And please follow. When I ask, how are you to a male, I would say, height score. Height score. For a female, I would say, high score. High score. And you're literally asking the person, how did you wake up? Or are you awake? But remember, essentially you're asking the person, how about you? Remember, this is another way of asking, how are you? So we say height score for male, high score for a female, high score for a female, and height score for male. You will notice that the T in height score is giving a male gender. Taking the T away, high score is for a female. It's making it feminine. So when you how to respond to this, appropriately you would say Haitago aitsama mire. Haitago aitsama mire. And that means I am well. How about you? And in this regard, if I want to say I am also well, you would say Tita chin got hai, Tita chin got hai, Tita chin got hai, Tita chin got hai. Now, please follow this conversation and say it now with me. We are speaking to a female. So we would say, Hi score. The female would respond and say, Hi tago, aitsama mire. And then the first person would respond again by saying, Tita chin ko hai. 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 In this regard, while using this method, can you please ask, how are you, by starting with the letters Hais, because we're speaking to a female. Hais. How would the second person respond? Hava again. And how would the first person respond to that? By saying, I am also well. On page 13 is also a very basic communication dialogue between first person and second person, where they greet each other, good day, and then the first person asks, how are you? Second person to say, I'm good, how about yourself? And the first person to say, I am good. So this is a very basic communication dialogue. So the first person would say, good day, princess. Second person would respond by saying, good day back, saying, princess. The first person will ask, how are you? And you would say, mire, mire. The second person would respond by saying, I am good, how about yourself? Haya, aitsama mire. First person would say, I am good, by saying, haya. By saying, haya. What would be very useful is for you to practice this dialogues with someone in the group. You don't have to be physically in the same place as this person. You can also just use WhatsApp and start having a conversation with each other. In this case, if I say the first person is Dylan and the second person is Waden, then Dylan would start by saying, client says Waden. Waden would respond by saying, client says Dylan. Dylan would again respond by saying, mire. Waden would answer saying, kaya aitsama mire. And Dylan would say again, kaya. In an informal environment, you often would hear some slang. Now, when we ask, how's it my friend, or how's it my buddy, you would say, matisa tikho, and you're literally asking, how's it my friend? Another way of greeting, or just saying informally of how you would say, taina tai, taina tai, taina tai, meaning in a way you can just like, what's up, what's what. A very easy way to answer it is, of course, haya, haya. When I was in Namibia, in Windhoek especially, I often hear people say, Paingia, Paingia, meaning I'm good. So this is used in a very informal way, like slang. On page 13 and 14, we have a formal greeting in the morning. It reads as follows. The first person is Anne, and Anne is speaking to Pete. And Anne saying, Good morning, Pete, would say, Kankwas, Pete, Kankwas, Pete. And Pete would respond by saying, Good morning, Anne, and say, Kankwas, Anne, Kankwas, Anne. Again, Anne would ask, How are you, Pete? How are you, Pete? By saying, Hide score, Pete, Hide score, Pete. And then Pete would respond to say, I am well. How about yourself, Anne? And Pete would say, Hi Togo Aitzama Mire, Pete. Hi Togo Aitzama Mire, Pete. And Pete would respond by saying, I am also well. Tita Chin Ko Hai. 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 Please translate the following dialogue from English to Khoekhoegowab. Good morning, Pete. Good morning, Anne. How are you, Pete? I am well. How about yourself, Anne? I am also well. On page 14, we have formal greetings in the day between Pete and Anne. Similarly to what we had in the morning, but this time, when we ask, How are you? We're saying, Mire. Previously, we used the phrase, Heidsko, Heidsko, but this time we're going to use Mire. Okay, so let's start. Good day, Pete. Hein says Pete. Good day, Anne. Hein says Anne. How are you, Pete? Mire, Pete. I am well. How about yourself, Anne? Hi, Sataha. Aitzama Mire, Anne. I am also well. Tita Chin Haisaha. Now, when I say the English, can you please read the Khoekhoegowab version? Good day, Pete. Good day, Anne. How are you, Pete? I am well. How about yourself, Anne? I am also well. You will notice that the greetings actually becomes a little bit more wordy. So initially, we just ask basic questions and basic responses, but now we see there's a little bit more elaboration, a little bit more word use. So let's read on page 14. Client says Pete for good day, Pete. Then client says Anne, meaning good day, Anne. Mire, Pete. How are you, Pete? Hoe gaan het, Piet? Tikha igekhay uit sa mamire en. Tikha igekhay uit sa mamire en. Say with me. Tikha igekhay uit sa mamire en. One more time. Tikha igekhay uit sa mamire en. There we say, with me, it's going well. And how about you? In Afrikaans, met my gaan het goed en hoe gaat het met jou? Dan sal en terug antwoord om te sê, Tikha China ige kai. Tikha China ige kai. Say with me. Tikha China ige kai, Piet. Say it on your own. And then Piet answers by saying, Kai Tessa Unhare. Have a good day. Goeiedag vir jou in Afrikaans. And then Anne would just say, Gangan Piet. Thank you, Piet. Thank you, Piet. Please follow this dialogue and read the Khoekhoegowab with me. Let's start. Fine, says Piet. Fine, says Anne. Mire, Piet. Tikha ige kai uit sama mire, Anne. Again. Tikha ige kai uit sama mire, Anne. Then Anne would say, Tikha China ige kai, Piet. Again. Tikha China ige kai, Piet. Kawa. Tikha China ige kai, Piet. And then Anne would answer, Kai Tsesa Uhare, Anne. Kai Tsesa Uhare, Anne. And it would say, Gangan Piet. Gangan Piet. Please translate the following English into Afrikaans. Good day, Piet. Good day, Anne. How are you, Piet? With me it is well. How is things with you? Met my gaan dit goed. Hoe gaan dit met jou? Kava again. With me it is also well, Piet. Met my gaan dit ook goed, Piet. Kava again. Have a good day, Anne. Goeiedag vir jou, Anne. Kava again. Thank you, Piet. Thank you, Piet. Also on page 14, I present different scenarios of engagement. In this specific one that we're about to do, you'll see it is someone visiting another person by knocking on the door. It is quite common that you'll hear among the Nama people that they don't literally knock on the door with a physical action, but they will actually rather use their tongues to mimic the knocking sound made on the door. So it's call, 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 meaning knock, knock, knock. Daddy, who is it? Tita Gay, it is me. How are you? Mire. Hagare, come inside. Hiya, I am well. I'll go through it a little bit slower. Knock, knock, knock. Call, call, call. Who is it? Tari, it is me. Person 2 is expected to recognize the voice of the person. Titage, titage. And then the second person would ask, how are you? Mire, mire, mire. Come inside. Hagare, hagare. I am well. Hiya, hiya. So we're going to do this, but read with me. Please follow on page 14. When two people meet in the home environment. Okay, So we'll say, Khoekhoegowab, Tarie, Titage, Mire, Hagare, Haya. Translate from English into Khoekhoegowab. Knock, knock, knock. Who is it? It is me. How are you? Come inside. I am well. In the next scenario, the two people meeting each other are not familiar with each other. So they're literally asking, who are you? So, yeah, this scenario is specifically for people who don't know each other. And just as a footnote, I want to say that the male word for you is satsa. Satsa. It's spelled S-A-T-S-A. Satsa. And the female word for you is sasa. Sasa. Spelled S-A-S-A. So let's continue. This is on page 14 and 15. When two people meet. Good day, Hein says. Second person answers again. Good day, saying, Hein says. The first person speaking to a male would say, Satsa Atari. And the second person would answer, I am Emil. Who are you? Tita ge Emil. Satsa Atari. Tita ge a Emil. Satsa Atari. Again, Tita ge Emil. Again, Tita ge a Emil. Satsa Atari. And the first person would answer again, Tita ge a Sara. Tita ge a Sara. We'll do it now, but please follow and say with me. Hein says, Satsa Atari. Tita ge a Emil. Sasa Atari. Tita ge a Sara. Translate the following from English into Khoekhoegowab. The first person asks, good day. The second person answers, good day. First person asks, who are you? The second person answers, I am Emil. Who are you? The first person answers, I am Sarah.